Hi, I'm Rakan, and today I'm going to be presenting my research answering the question, how do adults and young adults with acute lymphocytic leukemia subjectively and objectively receive their different treatment options, such as chemotherapy versus immunotherapy in the form of blinatumomab, to be treated for the disease? Acute lymphocytic leukemia, or ALL, as I'll be referring to it in this video, is a malignant form of blood cancer, commonly seen in pediatric cases, although it's rarely seen in adult cases as well. And it occurs when there are certain cell mutations in the bone marrow, causing there to be the creation of immature white blood cells called lymphoblasts. Because these cells are immature, they're unable to function properly, meaning more of them need to be created, and then they end up crowding out the healthy cells. Keep in mind this is a malignant form of cancer, meaning it divides and progresses extremely uncontrollably and quickly, which could pose some issues for the patients who need to be treated really fast because these treatments take years to administer. The current state of this disease is that of multiple treatments being available on the market, and although being placed at extremely high price points for reasons that we'll discuss later in the video, have proven to be effective in the past, although not 100% effective, as some of the leading drugs have had at some points efficacy rates of just above 54%. Moving on to my research method. So I used Pubmed with the advanced search tool, putting in key phrases such as acute lymphocytic leukemia, different therapies for acute lymphocytic leukemia, cost of the different therapies for the disease, quality of life for patients with the disease, and finally, acute lymphoblastic leukemia patient surveys. As for the filters provided by Pubmed itself, I use adults and young adults for the age, and full free texts and clinical trials for the articles, and a time period of no more than 5 years, just because one of the drugs that I'll be comparing was only approved by the FDA for use in 2017. I came out with 4 articles in the end, all of which will be contributing to the research, although I'll be providing summaries on 2 of them. The first of which is a phase 3 clinical trial, which compared blinatumomab against chemotherapy for the treatment of the disease, and this could be really useful in terms of comparing efficacy rates and side effects in an objective manner. And the second one is a retrospective analysis of the treatment with treatment-related hospitalization costs and financial burdens of the disease, meaning that it will be really helpful in terms of answering the accessibility portion of my research question. Moving on to my results and findings for the first study. As we can see on this graph, when probability of overall survival is plotted against months since randomization of the cohorts, we can see that although both treatments have a downward curve, blinatumomab is pretty much completely more effective in terms of probability of overall survival of the disease, although both of them come to a plateau around the 16th month. In terms of summary of the article, with respect to full hematologic recovery within the first 12 weeks of treatment initiation, full remission rates, which means little to no traces of the disease were detected, were significantly higher in the immunotherapy group compared to the chemo one. This had a p-value of 0.01, making it significant in this case. Adverse side effects were slightly higher in the chemotherapy group, and the median overall survival for the blinatumomab group was 7.7 months compared to 4 months for the chemo group, mainly making the immunotherapy almost twice as effective. As for my results and findings for the second article, for the summary, we can see that treatments and hospital visits due to ALL are significantly increasing in price. As for figure A on the second article, it plots average cost of having the disease against year of diagnosis. This in turn means that having the disease is getting more expensive as the years go by, although there was another graph from another article plotting the overall survival and probability of the disease against time, which showed that overall survival is somewhat increasing, although not in the cohorts, as I mentioned before, that I'll be studying, which is adults and young adults, but this was very significant in terms of infants and adolescents, although it is not significant in this case. For my discussion and conclusion portions of this research, I've concluded that it is important to recognize the fact that ALL is a rare disease, which means that a lot of money, as I mentioned before, is being invested into the research being conducted to provide people with these drugs. And economically, it does justify these prices, but morally and ethically, it is very, very sad to see the fact that we do have access to these treatments, but they are unable to be given to everyone just because a rare drug such as blinatumomab is still considered experimental and in its fourth phase of clinical trials, meaning that the general US insurances do not cover this, whereas they do cover chemotherapy to an extent. I did not find as much research regarding the health-related quality of life of the patients before and after they were administered the treatments, although I used a retrospective analysis and research method to find different health-related quality of life articles of ALL patients in general, which allowed me to do a retrospective viewpoint of my own rather than using PubMed, and coming to the conclusion that health and quality of life did indeed increase after the patients were administered. This was very, very scarce in terms of research, and I cannot back this up completely. That is all I have to say for my research today, and thank you all for watching this video.